the old quantity might be 3 and the new quantity is 5, meaning that we have to create 2 more. Those kind of things could be in this part. In our case, only 1 item, but there could be more items, like E1 licenses, some add-on scenarios as well. And then we've got our parameters section. We've got that ordering parameter called email, where we send the email of the customer. Of the user. It was that we gave. Since this is a cancellation item, it means that the subscription is already completely filled. That means that there is an account ID filled out. Here we have it. And we also have a license ID. This whole subscription was running, meaning that we did create account and we did a create license. We fed that information back to the to Connect as those fulfillment parameters, but now we're canceling it. So we see that information in the request. And then we see that we have a customer. This is the tier account, the name of the customer, where is it? All the way down here. The first name and last name of the customer, John Doe. And it came from this tier 1 AMX trainer account. It was a preview. And the default activation template that was there is this template. Of course, we're pushing a new template the moment this subscription has canceled. So let me look at that asset ID. I should be able in Connect to find this ID. Where's my browser? There's my browser. Let me go to this one, to my subscriptions directory, and let's apply a filter. And I want the ID of my subscription to be that one. There it is. So here we have a terminated subscription now, where it says your subscription has been canceled. If I go to my product, and go to embedding, going back to our Insomnia one. Where is it? Where's my template? Template ID, parent, tier 1. Here we are. The template that is showing in the request is this number, which is 805.145.113. And you see that it's this one, 805.145.113. So the default activation template that we had when the subscription, the request was there, was this screen. And the moment we have approved it, it now shows this specific screen. So that's how you can read that information from Connect. So the next step would be that we want to request some information. Let me go back to my slide deck. This is that same, or almost that same API response. In this case, we see it is a purchase request where the ID, as I predicted, is 001. We have our request ID because that is one of the things that we need to have later. If we fill fulfillment parameters, we do that based on the fulfillment request ID. We saw in the UI, let me go to my subscriptions. Let me remove the filter. Here's a processing one. Let's take that one as an example in this case. In the subscription itself, I cannot alter fulfillment parameters. I can only view them, but not add information in there, right? So when I need to somehow push parameters into the request, I need to know which ID I need to use. So I'm going to put information into this specific request. What am I putting there? I'm putting there that my account ID is this and this, which is the response of my SW license API. I'm going to put into this request my license code, which is another response that I received from my SW license. So that's a key thing. And I always underline what we have and what is important, but I have a slide that does that. So let's not start doing it anymore. My ID is important. My type is important. The type might be important for the routing of your request in your integration. What do we do with purchase requests? What do we do with cancel requests? What do we do with change requests? Of course, the status is the key thing that we need to somehow set up. Pending needs to go to approved. Pending means we can do something with that. Status could also be inquiring. What do we do there? Nothing, because the customer needs to do something first. And then it goes to pending, and then we pick it up. That's the way you have to think about it. Of course, between those items, there is information. These are your subscription parameters, your asset. Your asset translates into what service is it? Where we have our subscription ID already, because a subscription will be created even though processing hasn't finalized yet. The subscription itself is there. In that subscription, we see the external ID. The external ID, like I said, is the ID as it would show in Cloud WooCommerce. So it's important for you to realize that that information is part of that integration. Status processing. We need, or we read that. As long as that fulfillment request is not approved, the status of the subscription is, of course, processing. The product ID is important. And then we have that set of items again. I already mentioned it there, and we've got the set of parameters. And last but not least, it is the tiers of information. So customer, reseller along the way, another reseller along the way, the distributor itself, etc., etc. So these last red 3 items reflect something like this. Here we see that it is a purchase request. We already saw that because this is all about the actual or unactual request. This is a purchase, which means it's the first thing, which means that when we look at the items, we're going from 0 items to the amount of items that the customer has purchased. In this case, 18. In our case, stick to 1, because we only do a user with a license, and that's it. But in a more elaborate application, and maybe I'll attempt for future trainings to make this one a little bit more elaborate. How do we do this? We do this based on the manufacturer part number. So in this case, it's a cities limit. In our case, the MPN would be license. License would be 1. And there's a lot of meta information. What ID does this item have within that application? What's the global ID this item has within the application? I'm not sure why we have those two, because from my perspective, these two are completely and 100% the same. But that's how it's set up. Then we've got our parameters. As we said, we have multiple parameters. In our case, it is the email address or email as the ordering parameter, and we've got two fulfillment parameters, which is customer ID as well as license code. And then we've got the tiers where we can pick up a test customer. In our case, this is for the other application that doesn't work anymore, but we're going to use this piece, first name, last name. So we're taking two fields, two values from the tiers application and push those into the full name of the JSON file that is sent to the SW application. We're going to pick up those two. And of course, from our parameters, we're using that email to push it in there. What further do we have? Well, we've got our API specs, all list of API methods. I gave you the link already, or you know where to find the link. But we have the four methods, as I said: get, post, put, and delete. I prefer to convert this list. I would prefer to say post, get, put, and delete. Why? Because the acronym that is most often used with these actions is CRUD, C-R-U-D, create, read, update, delete. Create is post, read is get, update is put, and delete is delete. So I would prefer to swap those two. But that's that. So let me quickly do a small demonstrations of creating a new environment with the information that we need, so that you know how to start a little bit later in the next lab. I'm going to Insomnia, and I'm going to add another environment. Let me go to the base environment here. Sorry, I need to go to settings, my bad. I've got my base environment. What I'm doing always is I'm going to use something similar where I have a scheme, where I have a host and I have a base path. Why do I do it that way? Because this is, for my base environment, something that works always. Whether my API uses HTTP or HTTPS, if I define that in the specific environment that I'm using, I don't have to set anything else. That means that in my case, now I set the scheme to be HTTPS. If I have another simpler application, I would use HTTP, right? Besides that, I define the path here, the base path, and the host. Of course, what I could also do is define here https://api.connect.cloudblue.com/public/v1/. That would be the same thing. The only thing is it does not get any flexibility after that. If the API path changes, if we, let's say, onboard a V2 of the application, I have to go back in and change that base environment instead of changing the respective environments. And of course, the last thing I have, and that one is not for the base environment, but that is environment specific, is my authorization option. So let me give you this, because it saves you a lot of work if you have this. I'm not sure what happened, but I see that at 10:41 the recording stopped and restarted. So it might be that this session is recorded in 2 chunks. Let's see. So there it is. That is how my environment looks. And I will also make it easy on you to set up that base environment that I will paste also there. Why did I do it that way? Well, now if I look at my base environment, scheme, host, path, I can use in any API method, I can just use a parameter that says base URL. Base URL allows me to even change environments, and that means including that base URL by going and using another environment from my list of all environments. If needed, if you, for instance, have some kind of specific branded API URL for a specific vendor and a different branded URL for another vendor, the base URL is the same thing. The base URL, Claudio, is set up using that base environment string. Here we have it. That is the second piece of code that I created. And we've got for Brazil, we've got this set. The only thing you have to set up is your own API key. So in our case, we use the same URL, but there might be reasons to have a branded URL. In that case, the way I set it up is allowing me for that, because now I have a flexible setup where I can still use that base URL as input for my methods. So if I want to do a send requests, let's do something here. I see that there is a cancel request here, and I see that this cancel request has a status all the way at the bottom. Where are we? Oh, those are multiple requests. Let me go to the bottom here, tiers, under tiers. There's tier 1. Tiers template, pending request. Type is cancelled, status is pending. I am looking at a pending cancellation request. Do I have a pending cancellation request? Let me see. Subscription fulfillment. Oh, there are 2. Okay. There is a cancellation request. That's this one that I'm looking at now. And there's that one, the top one, a purchase request. So there is a pending cancellation request. Here we are. And a little bit down, a new request starts. That is a purchase request. And that one at the bottom will probably show you that it's also in the pending state. Or is it? Here we are, status pending. So you see that this one gives me both requests to look at. Of course, if I want to, I can filter out things. I can use this one and say, okay, I want to only have purchase. If I do a send, it's 4.6 KB now. And here there's only one request available. So you can play around with those selections if you want to here. But I have a purchase request that is pending. Let's process it. Let's process this request. And that means I'm going to toggle back and forth. I'm going to pull up my text editor because I need to copy some information in there. Let me put it over here and make this one also smaller. So we can put those two together. I don't need that much in text editor. So we have it. What do I need? I need, for my application, I need my first name, last name, and I need that input parameter or ordering parameter. So I'm going to find first. Ooh, this is crappy. There's my product. I don't need product. Let's collapse what we don't. We don't need connection. I don't need events. And here's my items. Well, there is, here we see it's old quantity 0, quantity now is 1, which is a license. I don't need items here. Here's my parameters. So what I have here is the email address of the user, where the email address is given as this one. So now we have our parameters. This is the first parameter. There's the other one. So I can close all parameters. And here we have our tiers. We have our customer tier. Where are you? Here we are. First name, last name. So, of course, in my customer base, I don't have anything else than John Doe yet. So that is what I need. That means that I can now go to my SW service. What am I going to do? I'm going to create an account manually, meaning that, well, the John Doe is still there. I'm going to set the appropriate email address. Control V and send that request. Here we have an account ID. I have to copy that one. Control C. That is my account ID. And using that account ID, I'm creating a license. Manual, this one. Send. I get a response. So what do I do now? Well, I need to push back those two parameters, the account ID as well as the license code, into that fulfillment request. So I'm going back to my request. Here we have it. And maybe I should also have copied that fulfillment ID, that fulfillment request ID. So what am I going to do? I'm going to update a specific request. JSON, here we have it, the license, as well as I can do it in 2 steps. I can do it in 1 step. What I need to do is, of course, remove this request ID and paste the correct one. And I need to set up either one parameter or 2 parameters at the same time. It depends on how you want to do it. I'm going to do 1 parameter at a time. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the account ID. Oh. Control V and say this is account ID. Send. Here we are. We can now verify if it has been added. Here's my items. Here's my parameters. The account ID now has a value, whereas the license does not have a value yet. Control C. License in there. Send it over. Verify. There's my license. There's my parameters. And the license now also has a value. The next thing that I need to do is I need to approve that request. Where are we? Here we are. Approve the request. The first thing is I need to approve the specific ID, which is this one. Control V. And we have to use the right template ID. And for that, I'm going to my browser to verify in the product embedding that we use the correct ID, this one. Control C. Control V. And you see it changed. And now I click send. It gives me a 200 OK. That means that if I go to my subscriptions directory and take 100 at a time, I should not have any pending or processing subscriptions anymore. Another reason or another way of doing that is go to get that request list again. Where from the parameters perspective, what did I do? I have none here. I don't have a limit. I just want to send a request, and there should be one request left. That is that cancellation request. Cancellation request you don't see as a subscription, of course. But there is a terminating subscription. Terminating means we have asked for cancellation. That means if I go to fulfillment, there is a filter for pending, and that is my cancel request. So this is how you can manipulate, I wouldn't say manipulate, or how you can work with that API towards two sides. The first one is create your subscription in SW license application. I will give you the information for that in a second. I'm going to give you a break, and I will share a file or I will put that information probably in the chat. And on the other side, we are communicating with CloudBook Connect. First, getting used to that API. Afterwards, we're going to use a specific tool called Zapier to do that, to run that integration. But before I do so, what questions do you have so far? If you don't have questions, please give me a thumbs up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, tell me.
I do have a question about the next steps.
Tell me.
So far we were, sorry. So far we were talking about using the Connect APIs. Basically, I was assuming I am like a commerce or something, and I want to create or cancel something in Connect. So this is what we were doing so far. But you say that
there are two. Like I said, the API has two sides to it.
Yeah.
You can interact with it as if you were commerce.
Yeah.
On the other side, that is not the most logical thing to do because commerce has its own integration using PLM and using that Connect extension for commerce.
Yeah.
So, of course, you can play around with it like you do in that way. But
So we
what
will not be doing that. We are going to do is do the provisioning side, right? We will work on the other
this
side.
moment, that is what we're doing. But of course, as soon as you understand what you're doing on that side, it is fully transferable into something
Oh,
that
okay.
works on the distributor side. But this is a little bit easier because there is a very dedicated and strict flow. But if you understand how that part works, you can translate it into what happens on the distributor side. Does that-
Not sure I got it yet. What are the next steps? Just
The
rewind a
next
little
step
bit.
is to take a 10-minute break.
Oh, go. Nice.
And
Water
then I
and
will,
stuff.
in the meantime, I will put all the information, like URL for my SW license application in the chat. I will put the appropriate methods and their URL for that application in the chat as well.
Okay, that application that we saw in the last week. Right?
Yes.
The one
Yeah.
that is
Now I
really
have it running
simple.
in the
Yeah.
cloud. Now
Yeah.
I have it running in the cloud, so you can talk to it and play around with it. Yeah.
Got it. So, and then we are going to put it on Insomnia, and then we work with it, play a little with
Accordingly.
it, and then afterwards we're going to play with it using Connect. Is that it?
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right.
That's the story.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. So let's take a break until 25 minutes past the hour.
7 minutes.
25.
25. Sorry. So it's more. It's
Yep.
12.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
See you in 15 minutes. Oh, sorry. I was playing around with that colors thing. I never used it. So I was wondering what would happen with that color. Can I have a thumbs up for you that are back, please? Thanks, Marcos. Ana Paula is there. Good, Mirna is there. Okay, I see people being back. I want to do a lab with you. And I've got some of the descriptions ready here. Let me put everything on that page. And I want you to do all this through the API. What I've given you in the chat, and let me pull it up and show it to you, is I've given you the specific schema for Connect. I've given you the base environment here, but I've also given you my YAML file. That means that you don't have to create your own request set for the SW application, SW license application. Plus, I have the link here for downloading the YAML file for the Connect APIs. So the first thing you should do is start up your Insomnia and create yourself a workspace. Either a private one or a shared one, doesn't matter, but you create a workspace. I'm using Local Vault for this one because it's not useful to share it with people. And in that workspace, you're creating by importing two collections, one for Connect and the other one for the SW license service. Those two files, this is where the license file or the SW license YAML file is. If you cannot download it, I also uploaded it to the Claro Drive share that I use to upload, let's say, my my recordings. And this is the link to the YAML file for, or this is where you can find the link to the YAML file for CloudBlue Connect. Can you import those? I'm coming to your question in a second, Ana Paula. And then go and do that lab that I will put on screen after 2 seconds. Here we are. Ana Paula, tell me.
Just that the clicking there, I'm not being able to download it. And then when I go to the Claro Drive link,
Yeah,
it's weird because it's a 13 gigabytes file. I don't think that your YAML would be.
Oh, don't download everything,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of recordings in there. You should actually go to view all files, and in that option there is a SW license app YAML file. That one is just a few, probably kilobytes. Make sure that indeed, if you come in, I didn't realize that you would go all the way to the root and then download everything.
Yeah, it's just a.
Yeah. So go and view all files, go to the SW license app YAML. It's a new folder that I created 14 minutes ago. There you will find my specific YAML file.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, found it.
Yeah, perfect. So that is the lab, and let's take, because people need to download, add them, play around with it. Let's take 20 minutes for that and see how far people are. I will be here at my keyboard if you need me. So the idea is try finishing the lab at 50. I'm going to stop the recording, by the way, because looking at this does not work.